The range of challenges that have beset the Black collective, especially the Black family, can ultimately be attributed to the system of racism. To be clear, the only functional form of racism is white supremacy. Racism refers to a system, backed by legal and institutional power or authority, which sanctions the maltreatment of people of color, and Black people especially, for the purposes of the white collective's fun, glory, material gain, and to stave off the fear of white genetic annihilation by reducing the probability of sexual reproduction between those who classify themselves as white and those classified as people of color. Those who classify themselves as white are genetically recessive, and they constitute the racial minority on the planet 10%. Those who are classified as people of color are genetically dominant, and they are the global majority, 90%. Genes are responsible for skin coloration, and skin color-producing genes almost always annihilate white, i.e., the absence of color. In other words, white plus color equals color, and mixing threatens the survival of the white collective. Hence the long-standing phenomenon of legal segregation, e.g. redlining, and informal segregation, e.g. making higher education cost prohibitive, making suburban residency cost prohibitive for many people of color, especially Blacks, and the recent resistance to diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are three people categories under the system of racism, white supremacy. First, there are white supremacists. These are white people who maltreat or sanction the maltreatment of people of color. Second, there are white people. These are the people the white supremacists have classified as individuals without color in their skin, or who have been assigned the idea of being absent of color. They are the beneficiaries of the system of racism, white supremacy. Lastly, there are people of color. These are the people with color in their skin, or those who have been assigned the idea of having skin imbued with color. The non-whites, e.g., yellow, brown, red, and Black people, have been made eligible for maltreatment and victimization by the white supremacists. The descending color-based racial classifications are white, yellow, red, brown, and Black, lightest to darkest. The people classified as Black often have the greatest genetic potential to annihilate white via reproduction with those classified as white non-colored. Thus, Black people are the main target of the system of racism, white supremacy. The males of color, especially the Black males, are targeted the most, as males can impose sexual intercourse with women in a way that is a lot less probable in the converse, and therefore annihilate whiteness via sexual reproduction with white women. This, of course, explains the phenomenon of thousands of Black men being lynched throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, often for merely looking at white women. The Black male was often then castrated, as the genitals are where the color-producing genetic material lies, which can ultimately annihilate white. This phenomenon was also driven by the fact that many white women have reported that the phenotype they find most attractive is that of the Black male, hence the tall, dark, and handsome idea. The Black race, of course, is the darkest race, and therefore is the greatest focus of the white supremacists. As was already mentioned, the classic features associated with the white race, e.g., white skin, blue eyes, blonde hair, are genetically recessive. As a compensation for genetically recessive features, recessive is a synonym for weak. White supremacists designed a system that would ensure that white people dominated people of color, who are genetically dominant. Dominant is a synonym for strong, in order to make themselves feel strong. Hence why Abraham Lincoln once said, "There is a physical difference between the white and Black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. Though while they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior, and I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race." In other words, as an unconscious compensation, those with white skin, which is to be understood as a genetically recessive, i.e. weak, feature, sometimes feel compelled to control or dominate those with color in their skin, which is to be understood as a genetically dominant, i.e. strong feature. The system of racism, white supremacy, primarily works by using the strategies of deceit and violence to inferiorize people of color, and Black people especially, and the white supremacists train non-whites to maltreat themselves. The system of racism, white supremacy, operates in the following 10 areas of human activity: economics, education, entertainment, healthcare, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The key phrase is the maltreatment of color, and black people have been trained since the era of formal enslavement to maltreat color. The black collective has been traumatized by white America's racist system, and according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual DSM-5-TR, trauma can present in the following way: persistent and exaggerated negative beliefs or expectations about oneself, others, or the world, e.g., I am bad, no one can be trusted, the world is completely dangerous, my whole nervous system is permanently ruined. Persistent negative emotional state, e.g., fear, horror, anger, guilt, shame. Feelings of detachment or estrangement from others. Persistent inability to experience positive emotions, e.g., inability to experience happiness, satisfaction, or loving feelings. Irritable behavior and angry outbursts with little or no provocation, typically expressed as verbal or physical aggression toward people or objects. Reckless and self-destructive behavior. Hypervigilance. Problems with concentration. In 1967, the problems plaguing the black collective was laid directly at the feet of white America by the U.S. government. The U.S. National Advisory Commission on Civil Affairs, aka Kerner Commission Report, states, white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it. In her book, The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors, psychiatrist Dr. Frances Cress Welsing states, the concurrent urban crises of drug use, drug addiction, drug-related murder, teenage pregnancy, infant mortality, black academic underachievement, black teenage unemployment, black adult male unemployment, black male incarceration, single-parent, female-headed households, chronic welfare dependency, poverty, AIDS, and homelessness are very disturbing individual and group-destructive pathological forms of behavior that are the direct and indirect byproducts of a behavioral power system fundamentally structured for white genetic survival, locally and globally. The chain of events begins with the denial of full-scale employment and advancement to black males so that they cannot adequately support themselves, their wives, and their children. In turn, large numbers of black male children grow up without father's guidance. This leads to frustration, depression, and failure in school. Once this atmosphere is established, drugs are placed deliberately in the black community. The drugs are then used to street treat black male frustration and depression. The high prices for which drugs are sold provide the black male population with the illusion that finally they are beginning to make some money and to share in the American dream. Guns are then placed at the disposal of the same black male persons, supposedly to aid them in enforcing payment for drug sales. More important, the strategy is for black males to kill and destroy one another and then carry the blame. It must be realized that no black males manufacture the chemicals for drug use, nor do any black males manufacture guns.
But for many, the wounds are always open. Perhaps most important, its influence radiating to every part of life is the breakdown of the Negro family structure. For this, most of all, white America must accept responsibility. It flows from centuries of oppression and persecution of the Negro man. It flows from the long years of degradation and discrimination which have attacked his dignity and assaulted his ability to produce for his family. This, too, is not pleasant to look upon. But it must be faced by those whose serious intent is to improve the life of all Americans. Only a minority, less than half, of all Negro children reach the age of 18 having lived all their lives with both of their parents. At this moment tonight, little less than 2/3 are at home with both of their parents. Probably a majority of all Negro children receive federally aided public assistance sometime during their childhood. The family is the cornerstone of our society. More than any other force, it shapes the attitude, the hopes, the ambitions, and the values of the child. And when the family collapses, it is the children that are usually damaged. When it happens on a massive scale, the entire community itself is crippled. So unless we work to strengthen the family, to create conditions under which most parents will stay together, all the rest, schools and playgrounds and public assistance and private concern, will never be enough to cut completely the circle of despair and deprivation.
George White, the man who helped the agency in so many of its programs. He would retire here to Stinson Beach, California. And shortly before his death, he wrote to his boss at the CIA, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, and summed up his career by saying, "It was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, and cheat, steal, deceive, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?"
In the CIA, we didn't give a hoot about democracy. I mean, it was fine if a government was elected and would cooperate with us, but if it didn't, then democracy didn't mean a thing to us. And I don't think it means a thing today. The true goal of the United States government is control.
The CIA does not care about human life. It doesn't care about peace at all. It cares about winning and perpetuating and expanding itself, and that's not an exaggeration. They have an entire procedure they've developed over the last 40 years since Gary Webb. They destroyed his career, lost his marriage, his finances, and then wound up in a hotel room with 2 bullets in his head because he reported on CIA drug running, and he wrote the book Dark Alliance. Their most favorite form of assassination is pushing someone to suicide, and then that gives them the doctrine of plausible deniability. And that comes from National Security Council Directive 10-2 in 1948, where the CIA can do anything it wants: sabotage, subversion, economic warfare, assassination. It can do anything it wants as long as there's plausible denial for the U.S. government. They can deny any involvement. The CIA can do anything it wants. Now imagine that. With their $39 billion plus budget and the power of secrecy they have, the things that they have done and are doing are unconscionable.
The Tyrone Mays rat experiment. He ended up getting it from another psychiatrist in 1840. They took a few hundred rats, right? And they splitted them and they divided them. And what they did was they created an environment for both of these rats to live in. In one subject, they took about 100 rats and they put it in an environment where it had clean water. They put it in an environment where it had the right amount of space for the rats can, basically, if they wanted to be by themselves, they could. They made sure that it was good food in there that didn't have any type of poisons put inside the foods. They even gave them space to breathe, to go upstairs, downstairs. They just gave them this abundant environment, right? They put these rats in there. Mind you, these are the same rats with the same genetical molecular structure, which is nothing different. They both came from the same mama, the same daddy, the same family tree, right? Then they put the other 100 rats in a bad environment where they didn't get water. If they did get water, the water actually had acids in it. They made sure they didn't give them the regular food. I think they gave them like cat food or something like that with a bunch of pellets that was inside of them, right? They stuck them on top of each other and they made sure that the space was very, very small. They never cleaned any poop out of the maze. They pissed out of the maze and they left them in there. They left them in there for 4 months and they watched how their behavior changed. They went back and they got the actual rats that came from the good environment and they put them in the maze. They ended up going through the maze very, very fast. Then they ended up going to get the rats that they put in the bad environment and put them in the maze, and they didn't know how to even make it through the first section of the maze. So he's like, maybe this is a coincidence. So he did it. So what he did was he switched the rats. He took the rats that was smart, that made it through the maze, that was in the good environment, and he put them in a bad environment. Then he took the rats that was in a bad environment, that was dummies that couldn't make it through the maze at all, and he put them in a good environment. He waited 4 months, then he took them back out. The same rats that was good and smart, that was in a good environment, that he put in a bad environment, now they couldn't make it through the maze. The same rats that was in the bad environments, that was dummies that couldn't make it through the maze, he put them in a good environment. Now they making it through the maze and making it through life just fine. So he said, damn, it ain't the genetics, it's the community. It's the environment that you put these biological entities in that changes the way they interact with their environment and with themselves. Did you know he did another 6-month experiment on the same rats that he left in the bad environment? Guess what they started doing? Killing each other. Some of the male rats started humping other male rats. Homosexuality. Look, the other rats that was at the bottom that didn't have the food, these went upstairs to the other rats and started robbing them for food and water. I said, damn, this sound like your typical project. Don't this sound like the PJs? This is a real rat experiment. So it made me start questioning. I had to sit back and really rub my chin.
They turned into robbing rats?
They turned into robbing, homosexual.
What else are you gonna do?
Rats.
It's a survival mechanism at this point.
Now check this out though, guys. It was a selective group of female rats, and I really want y'all to look this up when y'all get home today. Watch this. It will f your mind up. The female rats, they started pampering themselves. They used to let their children just do whatever.
Get your kids. Get your children. Get your children. Get your children. Get your children.
All they was worried about.
The hood rats. Which one of these?
See, these was the hood rats.
Okay.
The hood rats, right? Exactly. So the hood rats. I'm gonna quote that. The hood rats. All they did was pamper themselves. The only thing that they worried about was their fur. They worried about their weight. The only thing that they focused on was their actual cells. And then the father rats started going to other different parts of the actual rat experiment cage and started like bullying on the younger children. It was crazy, man. Look, it gets so deep when you really start watching it. It even rapists started happening. Rape with the older male rats in the community started raping the younger males and the younger female rats. Same thing that happens in the ghetto where a young girl will get touched on by their uncle, or a young male will get touched on by their uncle or their auntie.
With a team, he began feverishly designing and constructing habitats, sometimes referred to as universes, where he performed numerous smaller scale and more controlled versions of his original rat study on a domesticated strain of albino Norway rat. These rats would want for nothing. All physical needs for a healthy rat lifestyle would be provided for them, including food, water, climate control, and nesting material. The design of these habitats was simple. The layout was a rectangle measuring 10 feet by 14 feet, divided into 4 equal sections by electric fences. 3 of these fences sported bridges over which the rats could climb, while 1 fence lacked such a bridge. He enticed the rats to use one of the center pens by making the spiral staircase to that pen's living spaces shorter than the others, though he admits this was a comparatively small factor. But the more insidious change was to their food supply. In half of the experiments, Calhoun supplied powdered food, but in the other half he placed feeders of his own design, consisting of hard pellets behind a wire mesh. Almost immediately after introduction, things began to go awry. The females, unsurprisingly, spread themselves out somewhat evenly through the pens, but after the males jockeyed for dominance and those of highest rank were determined, they began to distribute themselves strangely. Less dominant male rats will typically awaken earlier and begin to wander and forage for food, and due to the design of the pen, this meant that they usually would end up in the center sections to eat. During this time, the dominant males of the outer pens would wake up and begin guarding their respective territories. These few remaining males began exhibiting odd behavior. Though they would spend most of their time in the burrows with the females, hiding away from the dominant male, they would never attempt to mate with any of them. Instead, perplexingly, they would try to mate with the dominant male, and even more perplexing, the dominant male would not fight these attempts. He called a behavioral sink, or an increase in pathological activity in the rats due to the stress involved in such high population density. For the females, the behavioral sink manifested in reduced capacity for nest building and young rearing.
This happened. So it's like, damn, is this rat experiment that's going on in Tyrone rat maze experiments the same that's going on with us in these communities? And then you have to ask yourself, in the projects. Right. And who built these communities? We didn't build these communities.
You know, we have to move them up
If we leave a smart one in the ghetto, he might develop into a leader against us.
You must disperse immediately. This is no longer a peaceful protest when you try to injure people. You must disperse now.
Former domestic policy chief John Ehrlichman said, "The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or blacks, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." Secondly, in 1969, President Richard Nixon stated, "You have to face the fact that the whole problem is really the blacks. The key is to devise a system that recognizes this while not appearing to." Lastly, in 1970, a sociologist and advisor to President Nixon, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, wrote, "The time may have come when the issue of race could benefit from a period of benign neglect. The subject has been too much talked about. The forum has been too much taken over to hysterics, paranoids, and boodlers on all sides. We may need a period in which Negro progress continues and racial rhetoric fades. Greater attention to Indians, Mexican Americans, and Puerto Ricans would be useful. A tendency to ignore provocations from groups such as the Black Panthers might also be useful." In other words, these three quotes, as well as other corroborating information by government officials, shows that white supremacists, particularly the highest officials of the U.S. government, declared war on the black collective, especially the black family, and that war has not stopped, as the war now operates in a covert way.
Clorinda relies on welfare to support Shaquana, but it's her mother, Gloria Henderson, who gets the check for the whole family. Gloria, 34, has never been married. She was a teenager when Clorinda was born, just as her own mother, Clorinda's grandmother, had been when Gloria was born.
When you were pregnant, did you assume that you could turn to welfare for help after the baby came?
Well, yeah, but I didn't have her just to collect welfare. I had her because I felt that it would have been a part of me. I would have had somebody to live for and also somebody to love and love me back.
Is your daughter the first person you've ever loved?
I really, really love my daughter.
2 months after the birth of their baby, Clorinda was pregnant again by Darren. This time she had an abortion. She didn't think she could handle 2 little children while still a teenager herself.
Your grandmother was a single woman with a child. Your mother, a single woman with a child. Now you. Why is that happening?
I really didn't plan on getting pregnant, but if I really had somebody to really sit down and talk to, like really express my feelings to them, I don't think none of this would have happened. And then when it did happen, my grandma's like, I told you this, I told you this, tell me nothing.
Nobody told Darren anything either. He too lives at home with his mother. Where's your father?
Locked up.
Locked up where?
Green Street.
What for?
Fighting and shit. Fighting. Violence. Stuff like that.
Had anybody ever told you what it is like to be a father?
I like watching other older, that had
kids. What did you learn from it? How did you?
I learned that they take a lot of patience. Take a lot of patience.
You have a lot of patience?
I don't got a lot of patience.
Clorinda doesn't always have a lot of patience either.
You want to fight? No. Then don't ask me if I want to fight. If you don't want to fight. Don't say to me.
You got my voice then.
Come in now.
Talk to you. You like going out like that.
No, you went out. You shouldn't have said nothing to me. You done already pissed me off.
What I do?
2 months after her abortion, Clorinda and Darren broke off their relationship. They see each other rarely now. Once in a while, Clorinda will take Shaquana to visit. Do you ever think about marrying Clorinda? Why not?
I ain't thinking about that. Nah, that's the last thing on my mind.
You ever feel depressed?
I don't be like sad. I just be like frustrated. I be like really like frustrated.
What are the odds that your daughter will follow the same route? Because there was your grandmother.
No.
You hate your daddy, you hate your uncle because he wasn't there. Y'all didn't have no dad in the house. Y'all don't know what no man is because boys done raise boys. How you gonna know what a man is? And from 83 to now, boys been raising boys. They don't know what no man is, and half of them wind up being somebody. Because they're in the house with mama, but they're not feminine. They just happen to be in the house with mama. Ain't no man been there, so how they know how to be a man? Right today, I'm 77 years old and finna leave planet Earth, and I can't tell you what no man is.
Man, I ain't trying to cry, but
if you love your kids, watch this video.
let me read something to you real quick. It mean a lot to me. Man, I ain't trying to cry, but let me read something. It's been on my phone for 5. Break generational curses. Quit yelling at your kids before they go to bed and expect them to sleep well. Quit yelling at your kids in the morning right after they wake up before school and expect them to have a good day. You set the tone for your children. You set the tone for your voice. They will always remember in their heads. You become their inner voice. Don't be their inner critic. Speak life, speak love, speak bravery, kindness and hope. Speak wisdom and truth. Most of all, listen to your children.
Parents, you just gotta be patient when it comes to your kids. I know it's frustrating getting somebody to learn something that's supposed to be simple. You gotta remember the things that you do subconsciously, they're still consciously learning how to do. You gotta understand your kids are trying to live up to the standards that you have set for them. You can't beat somebody up for trying.
Your children, the ones that I did not create, they're allowed to do what you do. They sleep all day. They don't come out of the room. They don't do what they need to do.
Wait a minute, hold up. I want you to come over here. I want you to watch this. Let me show you something. Go sit over there. I have a little concern because your sons are not demonstrating that they are learning to be the kind of man I know you want them to be. They're going to demonstrate the kind of man you teach them to be. And I'm not really sure what to do about that. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. That's how you do that. The woman has to talk to her man to get him to move the way she needs him to move. You're not going to get nothing with that.
Psychological programming of self-hatred comes from a white supremacist psychological program to cause us to self-destruct. We can't kill you because y'all don't know who y'all are, but we couldn't kill y'all because y'all these people that we know who y'all are, and we can't really kill y'all. But the goal is to deal wisely with you, to make you self-destruct. I can't kill you, but I'll make you kill yourself. So I put images in front of you constantly your whole life. From the conception of TV and radio, I have belittled you as minstrels, coons, and buffoons. I have taught you against who you really are. I've taught you against your real nature, the real nature of a black man. I've always made your women seem dominant and you seem passive as a man. I've always exalted your women over you because I always understood I ain't scared of her, I'm scared of you as a black man. So the goal was to cause us to self-destruct by hating ourselves.
I am so sorry, black man. Please forgive me. I didn't know, I didn't know. I didn't realize how trapped you've been. I didn't realize how you've been targeted and hunted, set up, lied on. I didn't know. And I want you to know that I apologize. I privileged my pain over yours. I did that. And there's no real excuse, but there is an explanation. Okay? As a black woman in North America, because that's where I live, I've been taught how to relate to you through white supremacy. And I never gave you the benefit of the doubt. I just took the images, the stuff that I heard my mama say, when wounded women were talking about you, and then I had bad experiences with black men. I painted you all the same way that the cops paint you. And I'm wrong for that.
I think that the only thing that's changed in the last, since Martin Luther King, since 54, I think the only thing that's really changed is the black woman. And what she
No, I
said
don't think
is
she's changed. I think she's become more visible.
I think she's changed. Because there was a time, let's say my mother, you know what I mean, my aunts and things like that, they would say, okay, if that's the way you establish your manhood, I'm going to go for it. And my generation says, hey, no good.
Okay.
You must
Okay.
establish
I'll
a
agree
new
with-
base.
I'll agree with that.
And we are, as a group,
I'll agree.
demanding that a new base be established.
Yeah, but be careful as a woman of what you demand of a man.
I demand that he be a man.
You have to, but you can't
because
say, you,
the
but you can't-
provision part.
Yeah, but you can't say you demand it. You have to suggest it.
Well, that's your ego that says that. No, I demand it. Now you deal with that.
All right. Okay.
I demand.
I'll even
I
go with that.
demand that you be a man, and I don't think that that's asking too much. Because if I wanted a provision, you know, I would get a camper. You know what I mean? I would get a camper that provides things. You know what I mean? You get an army surplus kit that provides things. I need a man. And black men have always been offered to provisions. People are either going to eat or starve to death. You know, the men of Biafra, the people were starving that they were still the men. Had to be that way. Through that horrendous kind of war. But it had to be that way because sometimes you are not able to feed your family. Sometimes you are not able to clothe your family. Do you then also deprive them of your manhood and of the input that a man has? Who teaches my son how to pee?
Yeah, but
you see?
Yeah, but you're talking. I agree with you. I see that very well. But it's one thing to be in a situation where you see that you have, where you see a future, however bloody, and to be in a situation where you see no future at all.
But you are. It is incumbent.
If I know,
it is incumbent that we see a future.
If I know what I'm demanding of you, in some sense, makes sense. If I know the fact the kid is not eating today or tonight or tomorrow, in some way makes sense. Yeah, then I can be there. But if it doesn't make any sense, and if I don't see anything coming out of it at all,
will he eat if you're not there?
If you're on welfare, he won't eat if I am there. And that's the law. But I don't want to get bogged down into that. What I really mean is that yes, a man can do that if he sees a way. If he sees that it means something. My father couldn't see that. And he was quite right. Because there wasn't anything.
There's something. Because all I know that works in the world is a relationship.
Yes, all right.
Okay, that's all that's going to work. It takes two people to have a relationship.
Yeah, but the relationship.
If you don't have a dream, fake it.
But the relationship, you can't fake a dream.
You got to fake it. Because we don't have dreams these days. How the hell can you have a dream? For what?
Well, it isn't.
So everybody's jiving, but let's jive on that level.
If I love you, I can't lie to you.
Of course you can lie to me. And you will. If you love me and you're going off with Maddie someplace, you're lying to me. Because what the hell do I care about the truth? I care if you're there. What Billie Holiday say, hush now, don't explain.
All right, I accept that.
Of course you'll lie to me. Because I don't even want to care. What does the truth matter? And why are you going to be truthful with me when you lie to everybody else? You lied when you smiled at that cracker down the job, right? Lie to me, smile. Treat me the same way you would treat him.
I can't treat you the way I treat him.
You must. Because I've caught the frowns and the anger. He's happy with you. Of course he doesn't know you're unhappy. You grin at him all day long. You come home and I catch hell. Because I love you. I get least of you. I get the very minimum. And I'm saying, fake it with me. Is that too much of the black woman to ask of the black man? For 10 years, so that we can get a child on his feet that says, yeah, father smiled at mother. He talked to me about school today. Who cares that you can read or can't read? Most Americans can't read. Most people can't read. They look at the pictures.
Baby, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but no, I'm going to be honest and think about it really. I'm not so sure that that is a human possibility. If I have to smile all day, and the cat on the job, the foreman, you don't understand why I'm smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I want to smile, I'm smiling because that baby needs new shoes. I can't give a performance all day on the job and come home and give a performance all night in the house.
Okay, so one of the performances will stop.
Yes. So you say, and okay, I might be willing to go with it, but who's going to pay the rent?
Back to that again. The rent will get paid.
Look, baby, I'm willing to play it your way, but you have to see my point of view.
I see your point of view. But the rent will have to get paid.
The price of the rent is my smile.
No. I don't want you prostituting yourself. I demand.
I don't want you prostituting yourself either. One of us has got to work.
You will work it out. Because you are intelligent enough and you are sensitive enough. You are a man enough to work out a new system. Because we started off with everybody's protest now and we're back there again. As long as the assumptions are the same, nothing will change.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we must corner ourselves to make a new assumption.
Okay, I buy it.
In case it was sort of like left up in the air or somebody, like I didn't get it across. I really think that my father, Jones Giovanni, is a groovy cat, and he's lived with my mother now for 35 years under holy wedlock, and I think that that's good for them. I think that that sort of thing worked for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the main thing that they were able to love despite it all.
That's what we were talking about before.
Right, exactly.
And you, by the way, you do not have to tell me that you love your father. I knew that.
Yeah, I think he's a gas.
Yes,
I just don't want to marry him.
I don't want to say you didn't. No, you didn't fail us.
Okay,
you didn't fail us. The white supremacist system is just beating all of us.
Black men will say that too about black women. That black women have let them down.
Right. Well, you see what I'm saying? It's just like the Julia syndrome. Diane Carroll and the Julia. Black women have been programmed via TV and everything else. You don't need a black man. You just need a white man to give you a job. At the same time, they're saying to the black man, you don't want a Sapphire. She's too argumentative. She talks too much. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? What you need is a white woman. Now, what does this produce? This produces maintenance of white supremacy. Why? Because you have divided and conquered the black man from the black woman. Just like you divide and conquer non-white people.
I have to make this point.
Gloria Steinem? Here, let me give you a hint. So I was reading an online article to which I came across something that I didn't know about Gloria. It talks about Gloria's new book, My Life on the Road, recounting her life, journeys, and travels, but look at the bottom paragraph. What is often missed or mischaracterized, however, is the work she did as a CIA agent. Steinem was a spook. Confused, I decided to dig a little deeper. Black feminism, the CIA, and Gloria Steinem. What follows is a fact sheet about Gloria Steinem's operations against the various social and political movements in America, particularly her role in creating a hateful and virulent strain of black feminism that attacks black men while partnering with the white establishment. Steinem first came across the radar of black men when she put a book called Black Macho and the Myth of the Superwoman by Michelle Wallace on the cover of Miss Magazine, to which she controlled. Let's read on. The book was written by a black feminist and activist, quote-unquote, named Michelle Wallace, who came out of nowhere. She was in her early 20s, yet she was being touted as the leader of black feminism. In the book, Wallace called abolitionists like Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth ugly and stupid for supporting black men. She called black revolutionaries chauvinist macho pigs and advised black women to go it alone. Go it alone? Do it alone? I don't know. But peep what Gloria said. Gloria Steinem said that Wallace's book would define the future of black relationships, and she pushed hard to make sure the book received massive publicity. Define the future of black relationships? What's the bottom line? The bottom line is the so-called black feminist movement was created and manipulated by the CIA from the very beginning. The only difference between black revolutionaries and black feminists on this issue is that black revolutionaries know they were infiltrated and manipulated, but black feminists are still unwilling to admit that they were infiltrated and manipulated, largely because they are highly invested in the hateful brand of black feminism. It is now a central part of the culture of black women, and this fact has led to the destruction of the black revolution and the complete distortion of black relationships, and the CIA had a direct hand in creating this situation. So black woman, Gloria Steinem, your American journalist, feminist, social political activist, and CIA agent, she was used to cause disunity in the black family through the use of feminism. Remember that book we read earlier, the one on the Black Myth by Michelle? She said that would be the future for black relationships. Nothing positive in that book was written about the black men. They were putting them down. So the next time you think about supporting her, ask yourself.
Male violence and men's attitudes about women and say it's all patriarchy. And I'm not dismissing patriarchy. I'm not dismissing structural racism. But if you really want to understand how some men relate to women in terms of their attitudes and behaviors, you have to go back to their earliest childhood experiences with their mothers. And when we look at the data, particularly in black communities on child abuse, the data tells us that the majority of the abuse and the fatalities are perpetuated by women. And so if you want to figure out why a man is a misogynist, you've got to go back to those early childhood experiences. And people don't want to have that conversation because then we have to talk about maternal violence and women's complicity in creating the very men who hate us.
So, yeah, you are making the point that when mom beats her son, that leads to him growing up to beat his wife or girlfriend.
Yes. She sets the template. That is his first, intimate relationship with a female.
Yeah.
And so you see it all the time, these women who
he loves her. The young child loves her in a romantic way.
Well, I don't know if it's romantic. I don't know much.
He sees her as like a girlfriend almost. He has that sort of...
I've never been a boy, so so I don't know. Okay. But it's that first relationship with a female, and he's setting the tone. And what happens is he's not going to make his mother pay for all that pent-up aggression and rage. He projects it, elsewhere. Think about our rap artists. I think about Tupac. Although you were, a dope fiend mama, you always were a black queen. You grabbed me and put a whoop into my backside, right? And this is the celebration of a black mother can be a crackhead, beat the crap out of you, and still be a god and worshipped. But then, they redirect all of that pent-up rage and aggression toward other women in our communities.
With us, also, it's, as in my story, it's more than just the actual violence. There's also the threat. Mm-hmm. I will whoop you, right? Like somebody who's beaten you, they might do it again. So now if I am acting on the potential of that threat. So that, and when we are comfortable saying, I brought you in this world and I can take you out. Obviously spare the rod, spoil the child.
Which isn't even in the Bible.
Right.
It's not even in the Bible.
Wow.
That sentence is not there.
That's amazing that we've heard so many times the Bible says, and it's actually not there.
No.
So many people have heard, I'll whoop you till the white meat and other sorts.
Bernie Mac.
Right? So, just the talk.
Internalized racism.
The culture of threatening children with violence is part of this whole thing.
Yeah. Tyler Perry, in all of his movies, Medea is always beating a kid, beats a foster kid on screen, is always threatening them, talking down to them. There's always that threat of violence. So black children are always between a rock and a hard place. So you're in a world where, I think a few years ago, we heard adults debating whether unarmed children deserve to die, whether it was Trayvon Martin, whether it was Tamir Rice.
Corporal punishment, e.g., hitting children with belts, is a legacy of slavery, as there's no evidence that this practice was used in pre-colonial West Africa. In her book titled Spare the Kids, Why Whooping Children Won't Save Black America, Dr. Stacey Patton states, whooping children didn't begin as a black thing. It's not even native to blacks. There's no evidence that black people's ancestors in West Africa embraced this kind of child rearing. It was introduced with the arrival of Europeans on the African continent centuries ago. Blacks have just kept the tradition going.
Are black women a lot different, do you think?
Yes. Yes. Magnificent creatures. Okay. In slavery, black women were appreciated. You understand how difficult that is? Yeah, that's some hard shit to pull off. Yeah. I hate you guys, but not all of you. Some of you are wonderful, precious beings. Yeah, that's, black women are almost unreal. And only because what it is that they possess, they don't, it's not on purpose. Like, you know how we feel about people on the spectrum? Like,
oh yeah, they're magic.
Right. The reverence that you and I have for that community, right? You're gonna feel that with black women.
Wow.
Like they're really where the word nurture comes from. You know what I mean? Like the ability to give you something as a man that you never had before or felt before, and make it comfortable for you to access that. Like, no, really, yeah, really life changing.
Yeah, man.
I'm sorry. That is the first thing I want to say to the black women out there who have been hurt by another man. It's unfortunate that we have not seen the greatness that you bring to the table. We have not seen that you are the mother of civilization. We have not seen that you are our first teachers. We have not seen that you've been there to support us. And in our madness, we have done things to you that have left scars on your mind. And I want to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the times that I didn't remember your birthday. I'm sorry for the times that we hung out with our friends instead of hanging out with you. I'm sorry for the times that we, out of anger, put our hands on you. I'm sorry that we didn't say you look nice in that dress or your hairstyle looked nice. But it's never too late for us to learn to love one another. Because when we understand the greatness that each other bring to the table, there's nothing that can stop us. I understand now that you and I are the mother of and father of civilization, and that we have an obligation to mend the broken hearts with one another. So I'm sorry for the time I didn't say that the food was good. I'm sorry for the time that I didn't take the children out so that you can have some private time. I'm sorry that I didn't enjoy the moments that we shared. But it's never too late to say I'm sorry.
Supremacists are trying to turn black males into women, e.g., unemploy or underemploy him, while bombarding him with messages saying, men are supposed to be economic providers. It's important for black men to understand that manhood extends beyond one's genitals and economic provision. While they are important, it also includes the provision of guidance, physical/emotional protection of others, furnishing ideas, affection, limit setting, and play. White supremacists are also trying to turn black males into adult infants, e.g., pedestalizing black male rappers with infantile names, showcase them engaging in reckless behavior, and displaying them with their pants sagging so it looks like they need their diaper changed. Also, because many black males are being raised by overwhelmed single mothers who sometimes release their frustration via harsh physical punishment, e.g. whoopings. Some black men go on to maltreat or distrust black women in the future due to maternal attachment injuries. Additionally, white supremacists are trying to turn black females into men, e.g., strong black woman trope, overwhelm her with work, train her to be combative via entertainment, convince her that the black man is of little value, so she can compensate for his absence by taking on his role and proudly serve as both mother and father. It's important that she understands that she has the right to be soft, affectionate, and compassionate, and to not fall for the strong black woman trope as a badge of honor. The white supremacists are also trying to turn black women into adult infants by having employers and colleagues relate to her as if she is incompetent. Also, by rendering her absent of a present father, she will be distrustful of black men, while simultaneously yearning for his love and affection, thus causing her to have an ambivalent posture towards black men due to her paternal attachment injuries. Black males have historical wounds around being respected due to the indignities of slavery, Jim Crow, etc. So respect is paramount. Black females have historical wounds around being heard due to the indignities of slavery, Jim Crow, etc. So making her feel heard is crucial. Because no self-respecting woman wants to be married to a baby, and no self-respecting heterosexual man wants to be married to another man, many black relationships dissolve, and the black collective is divided and conquered as the white supremacists hoped. The healing process requires a thorough understanding of white supremacy, and the black collective must see the system of racism, white supremacy, as their enemy and not one another.
Of war, the divide and conquer strategy. This approach has been employed by leaders, strategists, and influencers throughout history to gain an advantage over their adversaries. Let's unravel the layers of this strategy and understand how it can be applied in various scenarios. The divide and conquer strategy is rooted in the principle of breaking down a larger, more formidable opponent into smaller, manageable factions. By creating divisions and exploiting existing rifts, a strategist can weaken their enemy from within. For instance, the Roman Empire famously used this tactic to expand its territory, pitting tribes against each other and then conquering the fragmented groups. Similarly, during the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union exploited ideological differences in various countries to gain influence and control. Psychologically, this strategy leverages the natural human tendency towards conflict and competition. By accentuating differences and fostering a sense of us versus them, a divide and conquer approach can effectively disrupt unity and cooperation among even on social media. Influencers and marketers create narratives that segment audiences to tailor their messages more effectively. The divide and conquer strategy, as outlined by Robert Greene, is a powerful tool in the arsenal of psychological warfare. However, it's important to wield this strategy responsibly and ethically, understanding the potential consequences of sowing discord. As we continue to explore the 33 strategies of war, remember that knowledge of these tactics is not just for implementation, but also for defense against those who might use them against you. Thank you for joining.
When are monoracial black people going to stop excluding biracial people from blackness? Biracial people are still black. Historically speaking and systemically speaking, biracial black people have always been included in blackness. Biracial is not a racial category, and biracial people are not a monolith. If they have black in them, they still exist under blackness. For one, there are so many biracial people that are phenotypically black. There are a lot of biracial people that you can't tell the difference from a light-skinned black person. Then there are other biracial people who aren't even light-skinned. They my color. Biracial people are not a monolith. If blackness is only about phenotypes, are y'all finna start telling light-skinned people that they aren't black too? This is a slippery slope. Telling biracial people that they aren't black is opening doors for a lot of divisiveness and separation among our people. And for two, y'all are supporting claims for other groups when they say that black people do not have culture. Isn't that more important? Or do we only care about people who represent us by skin tone? If that's the case, then that means that we really don't have nothing in common. That there is nothing about Black people in America that has a shared experience except for oppression, and that is sad. If all Black people have in common is our phenotypes and our oppression because of our skin color and phenotype, that's not saying anything good about us. That is supporting every negative connotation about our people, about our culture, about our group. And I'm not for that. Biracial people, if they got Black in them, they're Black. You have a biological Black parent and you were raised in Black culture, in a Black household, you're Black. All trying to use the white man's logic to establish culture, power, and identity, and it's not going to work. You can never use the system that was used to enslave and separate us to empower us. It does not make sense. It's never going to work. All it is going to cause more separation, more division, and give us less power. Communities are not built by skin tone. Communities are built by values, culture, and experience. And a lot of biracial people share in our culture, our values, and our experiences. Let's not be further brainwashed by the system of white supremacy, because this is what it seems like to me. Divisiveness is not the answer.
I also want to point out just how many biracial Black people have been catalysts for racial change. Because y'all often say that we're not part of the community or shouldn't be, and that our problems are different and they shouldn't be talked about in the same space, and da-da-da-da. All of these people, look at all these people that were biracial. Frederick Douglass, W.E. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Thurgood Marshall, Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan, Billie Holiday, Langston Hughes. Like, we have been around forever. This whole notion that, like, we haven't done anything good for the community, or if we have, it's been, like, a very small number of people, and, like, most of us walk around as tragic mulattoes who are ashamed of our Blackness. Like, that is not true.
White supremacists came to dominate the Black collective by exaggerating and exploiting any differences they found within the group, and then turned us against each other. However, the truth is that just because my right hand and my left foot are different, it doesn't mean that they're not appendages of the same unified body. Black people must maintain this view. Whether one is classified as a monoracial Black, biracial Black, light-skinned Black, dark-skinned Black, female Black, male Black, Black Hebrew, Israelite, Chemite, Christian, Muslim, diasporic African, or continental African. Surely there will be disagreements within the Black collective. But even in our disagreements, we ought to forego maltreating each other with our words, tone of voice, or actions, as the white supremacists have taught us to maltreat each other. We don't want to be accomplices or co-conspirators with white supremacy by maltreating Blackness. In keeping with the aforementioned body analogy, sometimes there will be cancerous growths that emerge in the body, e.g. tumorous breast cancer. And if the growth cannot be mitigated through less invasive means, the growth will need to be extracted via a lumpectomy so that the rest of the body isn't infected by the cancer. It would be an error to simply kill a person, i.e., take life from the whole body, just because one part of the body is infected. Similarly, if a person is a threat to the survival or well-being of the group, they may need to be extracted from it. Unity, self-respect, and group respect are the antidotes to the system of white supremacy, and all Black people who are intent on thriving as a people ought to pursue this. This is not about hating white people, as they are not all white supremacists, although many are. This is about reestablishing love for self, and the group is a part of the self.
Name calling one another, stop cursing one another, stop gossiping about one another, stop squabbling with one another, stop being discourteous and disrespectful to one another, stop fighting one another, stop killing one another, stop using and selling drugs to one another, stop throwing down trash where Black people have to live, work, and play. Did I say stop stealing, stop robbing? Now, as I said, the pressure of the white supremacy dynamic that forces Black people to think negatively about themselves and set up negative environmental conditions will produce these negative behaviors. You see, but that's just like somebody putting you in check from the other side of the board. So you have to learn the tactics and strategies, the behavioral tactics and strategies, do you see, that will stop that from happening. So you're constantly on the offensive and the defense about preserving or evolving and developing a very positive image and concept of self.
Once I was 7 years old, my mama told me, go make yourself some friends or you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old. It was a big, big world, but we thought we were bigger, pushing each other to the limits. We were learning quicker. By 11, smoking herb and drinking burning liquor. Never rich, so we were out to make that steady figure. Once I was 11 years old, my daddy told me, go get yourself a wife or you'll be lonely. Once I was 11 years old. Always had that dream like my daddy before me. So I started writing songs, I started writing stories. Something about that glory just always seemed to bore me, cause only those I really love will ever really know me. Once I was 20 years old, my story got told before the morning sun when life was lonely. Once I was 20 years old. Only see my goals, I don't believe in failure, cause I know the smallest voices, they can make it major. I got my boys.
But when I said I was gonna take a train and go to Philadelphia, and I said I wasn't gonna leave today, I am leaving today. I'm sorry, and I'm gonna spend the night. That's the bad news. You wanna know the good news? Well, the good news is you're coming with me. And the reason I'm going to Philadelphia is because me and you are going to do a date, and we're going to stay in a hotel, and we're going to go to a play museum, and the hotel has a swimming pool, and we're going to take the train to Philadelphia in 2 hours. So I need you to grab your clothes and get ready, because me and you going to have 2 days, just me and you, traveling and having a great time. Would you like to go with me?
I would love to. It's straight.
Yep, car 6. Getting the verb.
Drinking.
Drinking. What do you say, babe?